We're back. Christopher Hitchens is one of the most brilliant essayists and thinkers of our time. His coming-of-age memoir, Hitch22, is getting rave reviews, and the book will debut on the New York Times bestseller list next week. Welcome, Christopher, the smartest guy I know, as you know.
Yeah.
And you call yourself Christopher. I call myself Chris, but there's probably more money in Christopher. Why did you choose? It's in the book.
Well, I don't like circumcision of names. Though actually I've just noticed I've amputated my surname for the title. Made myself Hitch, which is what some of my friends call me. The thing is, don't be called Chris if you care about your mother. My mother said, keep Christopher, it's a nice name. And if you amputate, circumcise it, it'll be Chris Hitchens, and the H will go.
The aspirant.
The aspirant will go. And, and if you come from a family like mine, which was desperate not to fall back into the lower middle class.
The dropping H's everywhere.
Stuff like, oh, just like, it'd be like saying toilet for a loo.
You mentioned your mom, the tragedy you grew up with. What happened to your mom?
My mother was very beautiful and very fashionable, wanted to be more fashionable. Yvonne. She was much younger than my father, who was a great man, but a rather dry, rather morose one, I could say. He bored her somewhat. When my brother and I had grown up, my mother took up with another guy, who was not so morose, but who was manic-depressive, bipolar. And I read in the papers that he'd killed her, that he'd murdered her and killed himself. But when I went to Athens, which is where it happened, to find out about it during a time of war and crisis, so it took a revolution, it took a long time. I describe all this in the book. I found that actually they'd made a suicide pact. They just thought it wasn't worth going on. Things weren't working.
They left a letter?
Yes.
And how'd that strike you?
Well, it was terrible for me because, well, why should I, why is it terrible for me? It's terrible for my father, for my brother, for all of us. It was terrible because the note was to me. I think that hurt, because I'd have to break it to them that was the case, and because I had to do...
She cared most about you.
Well, I won't say that. No, I don't think she did at all, but I think she thought I would be the one who would come. My father wouldn't be able to make it. My brother was too young. So it wasn't a favoritism. No, she wouldn't have done that.
So you were to take care of things.
But I had to take care of things. Yeah. So it was a terrible way of becoming a firstborn, in that way, I suppose.
You and I had a lot of agreement over the years about issues. People know my politics. They're not too hard to figure out here. There's somewhat in the center, somewhat on the left on some things, a bit to the right on others. But you were for the Iraq War. I was very much against it. Why do you think we disagreed? We both had the same information.
Yes. Well, there's a whole chapter in the book which I really wish people would read, because
sell it.
It hasn't been the case, the left case, if you like to put it like that, for regime change has never been made, to my knowledge, at that length by anyone. I describe who the people were in Washington and elsewhere who thought Saddam Hussein has to go. It's been too long. He should have been taken care of in '92 after Kuwait. Iraq's going to hell very fast. We can't have it imploding. We have to intervene one way or another. I mean, the general case for that, moving Iraq into a post-Saddam Hussein era, helping the Iraqis to recover their country, was a very solid one. And it came from a lot of experience of opposing intervention. I mean, I'd been very opposed to Bush Sr. in the first Kuwait war. I thought that was shady war in many, many ways. So I have a whole chapter about how I changed my mind and why. And, well, most people think it's entirely about weapons of mass destruction, and I don't. I think that was a secondary issue.
Your regime change. Do you think any other country in the world has the right to go to another country, a third country from ours, and get rid of its leader because they don't like it?
Yes.
I mean, as a principle.
On 4 conditions. That country is invading and occupying the territory of others, that it's committed genocide or is committing it, that it's fooling around with the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and that it's giving aid and comfort to international terrorist organizations. Now, Iraq had done all those 4
So
things.
you're giving that definition, which allows an attack on Iran right now.
Under those conditions, well, no, Iran hasn't committed genocide.
But you mentioned non-proliferation violations.
Yes, certainly.
And you mentioned terrorism.
I think there are 4 conditions.
You have to meet all 4.
Well, the genocide one, if you sign the Genocide Convention, is enough in itself, because that mandates action by the international community. But I would say there are 4 conditions under which a state can be held to have lost some of its sovereignty. With Iraq's case, all 4. And I didn't believe that they'd given up on WMD, not on the ambition.
So where are you now? Where are you now? This country was with you, by the way. The great majority of Americans bought the Bush argument, the neocon argument, if you will, that they had weapons. And not only that, it was a necessary step to arrive at some kind of stability in the Middle East. And as long as Saddam was there paying $25,000 reward for terrorism against Israel, there was not going to be any stability in that region. So a lot of people had good reasons.
And sheltering
where are you now?
And sheltering the guy who, and sheltering the man who mixed the explosives for the first attack on the World Trade Center.
And where are you now?
Now it's up to the Iraqis now.
Are you for the war now? Was it a smart position to take?
Of course. Iraq is a much better country. They have a parliament. They have an elected president.
So you were right.
Have a free press. The Kurds, whose flag I wear in my lapel, I describe all this in the book.
So you were right.
Have their own. Well, those of us who were for removing Saddam Hussein were right. Yes, absolutely.
What do you make of the current president, our president, President Obama, staking out in opposition to that war? He's our president now. Does he have the wrong foreign policy for America?
This isn't enough about me, by the way, but I'll talk about Obama if you like.
You want to talk more about your book?
Yes, I would.
And about yourself.
Yes.
And
that was the advertised.
That's right. Well,
don't ask me about BP either, if you don't.
Okay, let me ask you this. Why do you think Margaret Thatcher's sexy?
Oh, much more like it. Well, I think I was right about that too. A lot of people, when she first became the leader of the Tory party, thought she was a shrill, right-wing, suburban bitch and so on. I thought not. I thought she had charisma. I thought some of it was sexual. I thought she had the most wonderful skin and eyes, and I thought that she was going to be the next Prime Minister, and I got laughed at for it, but I think I was correct about that. And I thought some of her power was sexual. She managed to have exert this amazing allure over...
Who else would you put in that category of appeal? For female, for example.
Female
America. Which American political leader today has that kind of Thatcherite appeal?
Not a one.
Not a one. Not
Absolutely
Feinstein?
No. I don't mean to sound ungallant.
Not Nikki Haley, the new leader from South Carolina. No one has that sort of appeal.
No.
Who do you like in American? Can I depart from your book for 1 second? Who do you like in politics today?
I don't think that's terribly interesting. No one wants to know my views about that.
Salman Rushdie. How did Salman Rushdie affect your life?
Well, by becoming symbolically and practically the great test of free expression in our time. There has to be one in every generation. He was the one for our lot, in my opinion, and against the most strenuous opposition. I mean, you have an Ayatollah, theocratic head of a foreign state, dictator, offering money in his own name to murder, to bribe for murder, a novelist. Extraordinary, the biggest frontal attack on everything I loved by everything I hated, and a lot of people tried to avoid this confrontation and said, actually, if only you hadn't written the novel, we...
How do we live in a world where Islamic people on the more fanatical end of that culture will not allow that kind of free expression in Europe or in America if it in any way violates reverence for Islam? Yeah,
well, now it's spread. I mean, now Yale University Press won't do a book about the Danish cartoons that has the cartoons in it, cuts them out. Comedy Central censors itself. I say that Salman Rushdie was the great warning. We should have paid more attention then.
Okay. Hell of a book, Hitch22, New York Times bestseller list. We only talk about it when he's here. Next time he'll talk about other things. Christopher Hitchens, author of Hitch22, a play on, I think, Catch-22. I'm thinking, but I don't want to change the subject.